England's Food Warning 2026. Read the figures and ask how we are going to feed ourselves. England is facing a question that affects every worker and every family. How secure is the food we put on our tables? Read the figures. England's population was 57.1 million in 2022. The Office for National Statistics projects 60.8 million by 2032 and 64.4 million by 2047. That potentially means around 7.3 million more people to feed in England within 25 years. At the same time, England has only 8.8 million hectares of utilised agricultural land. The amount available for cropping fell by 0.9% in 2025 to 4.9 million hectares. Between 2019 to 20 and 2021 to 22, 26,300 hectares of agricultural land in England changed to developed use. We need housing and economic development, but these figures raise a legitimate question. As England's population grows and development continues, are we doing enough to protect the land required to produce our food? England cannot assume someone else will feed us. The UK currently produces the equivalent of around 60% of the food it consumes by value and around 72% of the food that can reasonably be produced here. That leaves us significantly exposed to what happens elsewhere. Imports are an essential part of our food supply and will remain so. But relying increasingly upon overseas production carries risks. Drought, flooding, crop disease, war, energy prices, transport disruption, and poor harvests overseas can all affect the price and availability of food in England. The events of 2026 demonstrate the problem. The Agriculture and Horticulture Development Board's harvest reporting indicates average UK wheat yields around 9% below the 10-year average at approximately 7.3 tonnes per hectare. Individual farms have experienced much larger variations. This is about food production, not just conversation about environmental issues. Those debates were and are needed, but we are now talking in the hard currency of food required. The worker eventually pays. When harvests are poor, the consequences travel through the food chain. Less wheat can affect flour, bread, and other foods. Poor barley harvests affect brewing and animal feed. Expensive animal feed puts pressure on meat and dairy producers. Reduced vegetable and fruit production can increase reliance on imports. Eventually, somebody has to pay those additional costs. Too often, it is the worker standing at the supermarket checkout that feels the extra cost. Food and non-alcoholic drink prices were still 1.7% higher in June 2026 than a year earlier. The immediate inflation figure is relatively modest, but today's failed or reduced harvest does not necessarily appear in supermarket prices tomorrow. The effects can take months to work through supply chains. For a family already balancing a mortgage or rent, electricity, council tax, transport, and childcare, another increase in basic food costs matters. We need to produce food in England. This is where environmental policy and workers' interests meet. Agricultural land must be treated as a resource rather than simply empty space waiting for development. Farmers need reliable access to water. England is experiencing serious drought conditions in 2026, and farmers cannot grow crops or maintain livestock without sufficient water. That requires investment in reservoirs, farm storage, irrigation, and infrastructure. But water is only part of the answer. England needs farmers who can make a living. It needs productive soil. It needs agricultural land. It needs food processing, storage, and distribution. It needs a workforce with the skills to produce food. Above all, England needs a long-term food strategy, a union view on food security and workplace rights. For the Workers of England Union, food security is fundamentally a workers' issue. Working families need stable pay, safe jobs, and strong workplace protections to keep pace with living costs. Stephen Morris, General Secretary of the Workers of England Union, said, "It is about whether a worker's wages can continue to put affordable food on the family table. It is about supporting English farming and food production jobs. It is about protecting the land required to produce food and ensuring England has sufficient infrastructure to do it. We cannot create more land. We cannot assume imports will always remain cheap and plentiful, and we cannot continually increase demand without planning how that demand will be met. England needs to decide how it intends to feed its people, because ultimately it will be working families who pay the price if we get it